Hello everyone, welcome to Brain Blitz Audios. Today, let's read a sci-fi story titled The Canine Intent. Let's begin, shall we? "Gee," said Melissa apprehensively, squinting at the dark grey walls of rock surrounding her and her two companions. "I didn't imagine it would be so dark, Major." Her flashlight spot flickered back and forth like an excited moth. "That's Colonel, Miss Jelason," muttered Clifford through clenched teeth behind his oxy mask. Colonel Clifford Keyes of the United Systems Air and Space Military Alliance, that was, and a title well earned, especially after the immature ridiculing hell he had had to endure as Major Keyes. "We cannot afford to electrify the lighting in these caves, since they were abandoned. Besides that, we have no real idea how such electrical interference may hinder the many experiments in progress, especially." A short series of high-pitched barks rendered the rest of his words meaningless. An oxy-masked Jack Russell bounded around their feet and came to rest on Clifford's right boot. "Was it absolutely necessary to bring this animal with us?" The Colonel pointed an accusing finger at the floor. "Oh, there's nowhere else to go for him, Major. Really, Settler is no trouble. Right, Settler?" Melissa giggled as the dog scratched at Clifford's leg with razor-sharp claws. "See? All he wants is a little fun. I think he likes you, Major." Clifford resisted the temptation to remove the dog with his other steel-capped boot and pointed his flashlight at it instead, in the hope that the bright light would prove sufficiently annoying. It didn't. "So," he spat, "how fully are you briefed on this equipment?" Against one roughly mined wall sat a rock laser cutter, a cube on 4 wheels sitting about 30 centimeters high. Next to this was piled 2 handheld remote controllers and a headset. Melissa shrugged. "I believe I have to test some machine, something to cut through rocks." She shrank a little behind her oxy mask. "I don't know why I have to do this. There must be hundreds of other people who know more about mining than I do." Clifford wished half-heartedly that his superiors would rush in at the last second with one of those other hundreds to replace this person. "Uh-huh, not fully briefed then," he said acidly, and heaved a sigh. "We chose you for the very reason that you have not operated anything like this before. Think of it as a usability experiment, if you like. Are you ready to begin? The sooner we start, the sooner we can go." He glared at his watch. This was no normal rock laser cutter. The extra technology crammed inside the tin can was so secret, in fact, USASMA had implied in no uncertain terms that they would happily remove all of Colonel Keyes' limbs if he breathed a word about it to anyone else. This also gave rise to the second reason they had picked out the technologically deficient Melissa Jelason from the rest of the settlement. There wasn't an ice cube's chance on Sol that she would be able to relay any important details to the unknown enemy that USASMA was always murmuring about. Clifford was developing a strong opinion that Melissa would struggle to use a handheld calculator if pressed to do so. There was still a usability factor involved. This was no lie. The laser cutter had to be tested by a person who had no preconceived ideas of how it should be operated. The fact that the chosen test subject appeared to have little idea of how to operate just about anything was an irony not lost on Clifford's diminishing patience. And as for her diabolically annoying canine friend, now that was just the last straw. Clifford pictured Settler roasting on a spit. The insistence of Melissa pampering the thing so much, even having an oxy mask fitted to its snout, Clifford's military-trained cool was microns away from snapping like a very dry twig. He reminded himself that his services here would probably help push his leave application a few thousand places forward in the red tape queue. A holiday on Earth? What a pleasure! It was worth putting up with one infernal animal and its diminutive owner for one dark day. First, I will demonstrate how a standard unmodified rock laser cutter is operated. Please watch carefully, Miss Jelassen. Clifford stood a little distance away from the laser cutter, holding one of the remote controllers in both hands. A flicked control switch and a barely audible whine came from the laser cutter as it switched itself on. He began playing his right thumb over a rollerball on the front panel, and the laser cutter rolled into action, wheeling about the floor in accordance with his directions. Settler began chasing it, barking every now and then. "How funny!" exclaimed Melissa. "Like a little metal dog. Settler, sit down." A dog with some added weaponry, cutting tools and so on. Clifford cursed himself silently for that unforgivable slip-up. "Are you with me so far? Take the other controller and try it for yourself." Melissa picked up the other remote. "So I just push this, like so." The laser cutter demonstrated a few full circles on the spot, then careened at full speed towards the rock face. This thing is quite sensitive, isn't it?" A tenth of a second before Clifford could think to enable the emergency brake, Melissa cornered the laser cutter on two wheels and aimed it straight towards him. "Could you please slow it down a little, Mr. Larson?" yelped the Colonel as the laser cutter stopped millimeters from his legs. He hastily bounded to one side, away from the front panel. "Whatever you do, Mr. Larson, please do not aim the laser cutter at another human being." "Sorry," Melissa pouted like a child, admonished for smashing a window. "I didn't know, did I? Anyway, why is this all so important? Surely we're not down here for driving lessons." "We're not nearly finished yet, and please hold your dog. This could be dangerous." Clifford steered the laser cutter towards the nearest wall. "A laser cutter," he explained, "has a variable spread, high-powered laser which can be used to cut through solid rock, and is controlled using this set of dials like so." He enabled the laser cutter beam and played it back and forth along the wall, leaving a 2-inch thick gouge in its trail. Then he widened the beam, quickly vaporizing a square meter of solid rock. "What I want you to do is spend a few seconds familiarizing yourself with these controls." Melissa gave a horrified gasp. "I can't do that. What if I do something wrong? I'll chop through something I'm not supposed to, and then what? What if I accidentally aim it at—" "Mr. Larson, the laser cutter's beam will be harmless during your control. Watch." Clifford reached down and punched a button to the side of the laser cutter, then played the beam over the wall again. "See? It's just plain white light now. Harmless." "I see." Melissa looked at her controller dubiously and began spinning a few dials. The beam traced a couple of circles on the wall, a triangle, a square. "Well, this isn't so difficult." "Oh, Settler, behave yourself." The dog was leaping back and forth, trying to catch the beam spot on the wall. Melissa laughed and maintained the spot a few inches from the dog's nose. As interesting as this is, I still don't understand why you need me. This is standard equipment, isn't it? Clifford cleared his throat and tried to sound official. I must warn you that what I'm about to show you is military secret material, and, Settler won't tell a soul. She giggled again and knelt down to stroke the dog's head. Clifford counted to 11 silently. Wear this, please, he said, offering her the headset. What is it? It's a new controller we have developed. You see, we need to address certain problems involved with manual controls, such as the one you've been using. Specifically, we need a faster, more accurate response time. Using handheld controls can only ever be accurate to a certain extent. One must account for the difficulties involved in learning how to use them, the relay time from brain to hand, the possibility of serious coordination errors when under extreme stress, and so on. Anyone with more brains, thought Clifford Riley, would realize where this technology was headed in the long run. What we ultimately need to do is bypass the use of our physical limbs completely. Melissa nodded and regarded the headset with some trepidation. So in other words, this thing is going to read my mind? I'm not sure I like that. Clifford chuckled. Well spotted, Miss Larson, but I can assure you that you need not worry about others listening to your thoughts. All the headset does is attempt to interpret visual mental imagery. To put it simply, you control the laser cutter by picturing what you want it to do. Melissa placed the headset around her head and concentrated. Nothing's happening, she said sadly. Clifford showed her how to switch it on. For the next 20 minutes, Melissa didn't say a word, just peered silently at nothing, concentrating as hard as she could on picturing what she wanted. The laser cutter responded sluggishly at first, then began picking up speed as Melissa got the hang of picturing her intentions in just the right way. Occasionally, she would giggle softly as Settler continued to chase the laser cutter and its laser spot around the floor. After some time, Clifford allowed her to switch the laser cutter's beam back to cutting power, and now she was experimentally burning well-controlled artistic lines into the rock face. Clifford didn't speak either. He was appreciating the proceedings more than Melissa could know. He had expected some teething troubles, but it was turning out to be a perfect success. If someone as inexperienced as Melissa could train herself to use the headset with such apparent ease in under 20 minutes, there was no telling how useful the system would turn out for USASMA. The implications for military weaponry were staggering. It was almost sad that Melissa would never know what kind of system she had helped pioneer. A low rumbling from above them interrupted Clifford's reverie. He stood up sharply and looked around, trying to trace the source of the noise. Now, it was coming from all around the mine passage, a thunder growing louder with every second like an approaching storm. Settler began to yap at the roof. Melissa suddenly seemed to realize something was wrong. What's it, Major? She removed the headset, dropping it next to the laser cutter, and looked at him questioningly. A storm outside? There was no possibility that they would hear a storm this far underground. No, hold on. He walked a few steps away from her, trying to source the noise. You know, it sounds like it's water. A few steps more. Yes, maybe there's an old natural water channel running through the rock somewhere nearby. I wonder what started it flowing. He turned around, found Melissa standing nervously behind him. He tried to smile. Nothing to worry about, I'm sure, Mr. Larson. A solid thump shook the passage. Melissa let off a short scream. Settler continued to bark incessantly, standing by the laser cutter. Now, let's keep calm, shall we? Clifford wiped a layer of sweat from his forehead. Probably the rock just settling a little. Do you think there's any way we could get that dog to shut up? For a heavy vibration through the floor sent them sprawling. They watched incredulous as, without warning, a section of the roof behind them began to cave in. "Settler!" screamed Melissa. The dog, unsure of what to do, ran behind the laser cutter, away from the falling rock. The roof collapsed. They both clapped hands over their ears, watching as the rock completely blocked the only passage through which they could exit the abandoned mine. "It's extremely unlucky, really," said the colonel softly. "How are we to know we would hit an unstable water channel? No one could have known." Melissa sat on the floor, crying freely. "All they said was it would take a few minutes. Nobody told me about any danger. Now I'm stuck down here, and we're never gonna be found. And Settler..." She let off a fresh wave of tears. "Someone will come looking for us, I'm sure of that." Clifford nodded at her, knowing very well that security protocols insisted no one knew exactly where they had traveled through that mine. No one was going to find them anytime soon. By sheer fluke, everything they could have used to save themselves was on the other side of the caved roof. Why, sobbed Melissa. "Why did this happen now? And surely with all this amazing technology that military shows off, surely they could have picked up a better spot?" Another rumble filled the air. "Oh no," said Clifford slowly. "Not again." He glanced up at the cracked roof, not wanting to imagine what was about to happen to them next. "Brace yourself, Mr. Larson." Melissa squinted, looking around. "But Major, that's not water." He concentrated. "No, I think you're right. As a matter of fact..." He stood up, spun around. "Mr. Larson, that's coming from the other side of this collapsed rock. I believe someone is trying to dig us out." He scrabbled over a few of the smaller rocks. "Hello! Hey!" A few high-pitched vibrations cut the air around him. He quickly jumped down and pulled Melissa to one side. "They're using a laser cutter themselves. We'd better stay back." Long seconds passed, during which the noises from the other side of the fallen rock came closer and closer. "Any second now," breathed the colonel. Melissa nodded, held her head. Then with one movement, the visible rock fell. A wide-angle laser cutter beam shone through the gap, missing Clifford's head by a dangerously small number of inches. He pulled Melissa to the ground. "Switch it off!" he bawled. "You're through! Switch it off, damn it!" Nothing happened for a while. Then the beam disappeared. "Oh, baby! Oh, brother! That was close!" Clifford said from the floor, panting. "What crazy genius knew where we were all this time? Who..." "Settler!" exclaimed Melissa, and leapt up, carefully plotting his way through the fallen rock. The Jack Russell trotted towards them, the laser cutter headset in its teeth. "That's impossible!" Clifford sat up, all expression gone from his face. "Impossible!" Melissa held the dog in her arms, let it lick her face. "Man's best friend, huh, Major? You're my hero, Settler. You're amazing." It picked up the headset. Must have discovered what it could do. Unbelievable. The colonel took the dog from her. "You've just performed a most fantastic experiment, you know that?" Settler whined at him and drooled on his shirt sleeve. That concludes this story, titled The Canine Intent, written by Gareth Barlow from South Africa and which was submitted for the Clarke-Bradbury International Science Fiction Competition conducted in 2003. We hope you found this story interesting and engaging. For more of such stories, please subscribe to our channel, Brain Blitz Audios. You can also get the latest updates from our channel by hitting the bell icon below the video and setting it to all. So until the next story, take care, stay safe, bye-bye for now.